דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד ועל העבודה על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning. Wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining us this Shabbat morning. The link for the prayer book is going to be in the chat. If you're on Zoom, on Facebook Live, it'll be in the header and comments. And if you're watching on live stream, it is right under the video that you can click so you can follow along with our prayer book. We're going to begin on page 172 as we sing Ma Tovu, welcoming our Shabbat experience with blessing.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Israel. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Israel.
We continue together on page 173 as we join in thanking God for our bodies. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware. we would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. We continue on the next page, 174, with Elohai neshama shenatata bi. My God, the soul you have given me is pure.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi.
We continue on page 180 with Elu Devarim, our section that allows us to recognize that we are all responsible for each other, and the lesson is learned through the study of Torah. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We continue on page 188 with Psalm 150, rejoicing in God and in Shabbat.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. El control. Hallelujah, Bakiamuda. Hallelujah, Bigorata. Hallelujah, Gerabana. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Take our shofar. Hallelujah, never the chilor. Hallelujah, tofu machor. Hallelujah, b'nidim levugal. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. B'tzil tzalei Shabbat. Hallelujah, b'tzil tzalei Trua. Olam Shabbat, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah,
We continue on page 194 with Chatzi Kaddish And if you are able, I invite you to please rise.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemir Amin V'amad dirachirte v'yamlich malchute V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedecha v'ed Yisrael V'hagalahu v'yizman karim V'yimeru Amin Yishmir Abba v'varach Le'olam olam me'al Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, Yitpa'ar v'yitrama v'yinaseh, V'yitadar v'yitala v'yitala, Shemei d'chudesh abrichu, V'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechamata, Damira be'alema, V'yimeru amen. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvarei chosh, Osei shalom uvarei et hakol, Hami'ir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Tiparach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, v'al me'orei or sha'asita yefa'arucha sela. Or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizcheh kulanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. We continue together on page 199 for Ahava Rabbah. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land and every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully, we remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'ambo Yisrael be'ahava.
Adonai Echad, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai. You may be seated as we continue chanting on page 201. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom ha'levavecha Vishinantahan levanecha, v'dibarta b'ham, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lachtecha v'tarech, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
Emet. Page 203. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Yehuda b'Yisrael, Lo Aleinu, Adonai Tzevot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai Yisrael. We continue with the Amidah on page 205. If you are able, I invite you to rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi tehilatacha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chastei Ahavot B'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, L'ma'an Shema V'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshe U'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rab Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayeh Me'emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Baal Gevurot, Umira Melach, Melach Mimit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Bene'emanat Ala Chayot HaKul, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. On the bottom of 208, we continue with the Kedusha. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad nevi'acha, v'charazel ve'amar, kadosh, 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 Adonai tzevahot, melech kol haaretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Mahadir Shimcha B'chol Haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo, Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'Hu Yashmienu, Berachamav Leinei Kol Chai, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai Leolam, Elohai Yitzzion, Ledor Vador, Hallelujah, Ledor Vador Nagigalecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim Kedushavcha Nakdish, V'shichach Eloheinu mitpinu lo yamush, leolam vahed, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. We continue on page 210 as we sing Vishamru, rejoicing in Shabbat.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam. B'nei u'v'en b'nei Yisrael, Oti leolam, Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam. U'vayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'hasot et ha-Shabbat, v'torot hamirit olam.
We continue together at the bottom of page 211. The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. I want to share with you another reading in our prayer book for Hoda'ah, our thanks to God, rather than the ones that we see on our pages in front of us. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We join back together on page 216 as we sing Sim Shalom, our prayer for peace.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha. Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha. La 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 ya la 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 sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha. La 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 ya la 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 sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha.
We take a few moments now for our own silent prayers. Shabbat, our Torah portion is Re'eh. And in this Torah portion, there's a lot happening. Obviously, we're in Deuteronomy, so Moses is retelling everything in the past 4 books, because, let's do that on speed there. So he's doing it really, really fast. So he starts out by talking about the blessings and also the curses, specifically when we're talking about idolatry. Then goes into talking about false prophets, clean and unclean foods, tithes, freeing slaves, and talks about the pilgrimage festival. So there's a lot going on within this Torah portion. In a minute, in a little bit, you're going to see the text study up on the screen. There it goes. So you see the text study up on the screen, and we are going to talk about 2 different verses within this Torah portion. And if you are interested in helping read any of the commentaries, if your video is on, that's kind of my way of knowing that you are willing to help read. But I will ask if Bernadette, are you there and want to read one of the verses? There you
go. Hello?
Yeah, go for it, Bernadette.
I don't see them. Oh, there you go. There shall be no needy among you, since the Lord your God will bless you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you as a hereditary portion.
You can go ahead and read verse 11 also.
For there will never cease to be needy ones in your land, which is why I command you, open your hand to the poor and needy kinsmen in your land.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So why just a few verses later is there such a contradiction, right? Verse 4, it says, there's never going to be a needy person around you. And then just a few verses later, it says, but actually, there are going to be needy people in your land forever, and it will happen this way. So why do these contradict one another, and why are they written so close together if they contradict one another? So Joel, if you want to scroll down a little bit. Perfect. Dimitri, would you like to read Tur Ha'aroch, please? You need to unmute yourself, Dimitri. There you go.
Nachmanides writes that some commentators write that Moses meant that there never will be a time when no one is destitute in the land of Israel, seeing that Moses in his prophetic vision foresaw that the Jewish people would never observe Torah law in their entirety without exception, so that the presence of a destitute person would be unimaginable. The law not to done, meaning make insistent demands on creditors at the end of the 7th year of the Shemitah cycle, therefore envisages such situations.
This is an interesting commentary, right? That these commentators, and a number of them, Nachmanides is kind of quoting a number of commentators, says, yeah, there's always going to be needy people in the land of Israel. And part of that is because Jews would never observe every law in Torah completely. So, the idea of having somebody who has no problems doesn't really make sense. There will be people who need help. So it's this interesting idea. And then saying that in 7 years, knowing this, every 7 years, we kind of restart. So my question to you, and you can unmute yourself and answer, I'd like to make it a little bit more interactive. Do you agree with what the commentators say? Sarah, I see you nodding your head. No. Okay.
We were discussing amongst ourselves.
Gotcha. Do you want to let us in on the conversation?
We were talking about how if there were no Jewish people, I was just trying to delve more into it. If there were no, needy people, sorry that I said Jewish, needy people, we would not be able to do the commandment as it should be. Yes.
Right. So there are commandments that are specifically for those who are in need. And if there were no needy people, then we wouldn't be able to follow all the commandments.
Follow the commandments. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely part of it. Anybody else? No pressure. Just giving you the opportunity to have a conversation. All right. So let's, Joel, if you'll scroll down and we'll continue reading Tur Ha'aroch. Or one of the boys. I'm going to let you guys read this one.
Okay, so Nachmanides finds this approach difficult, as it is not the custom of the Torah to engage in the kind of prophecy that accuses the Jewish people ahead of time of disloyalty to God, without qualifying such a prophecy a conditional phrase such as if in the course of time, etc. Introducing such a prophecy, it is an uncharacteristic for the Torah to legislate one of the basic commandments as something to be applicable to people who have been labeled beforehand by the Torah as deliberate sinners. He therefore prefers to explain our verse as follows. Seeing that in spite of the blessings that accrue to you when you do observe the laws of the Torah and resultant affluence, the resultant affluence in the land, it is particularly impossible that sometime in the future there will be an instance and destitute person unable to repay his loan on time. One must not dun such a fellow Jew at the end of the Shemitah year to repay his loan, but must forgive it.
Thank you. Sorry, that was a lengthy one, right? So, Dimitri, I do see your hand. Give me just 1 second. So this idea is that Nachmanides says, I don't like what these other commentators are saying, right? So not only do we in 2020 get to decide if we like what the commentators say or not say, the commentators have discussions back and forth about, I don't really like what you have to say. I like what to say, here's my own idea separate from what you have, right? This is what the commentators do. And since most of you on Zoom that I see are in Torah study, you know that very, very well, right? So Nachmanides says, I don't like this whole idea that we're saying that God already knows that we're not going to do the right things. And that just doesn't seem right in Torah to start that. But that instead, I'm going to think about it as no matter what you do and all things that you get by following the commandments and the laws that are in Torah, that there's going to be a difference in people, that there's going to be an affluence and a destitution, and that there is going to be that separation, but that still we have that Shemitah, that 7 years, to be able to give the people the opportunity to have their loans forgiven, to not feel like they're stuck in that place and cannot move to a different level. Dimitri, you had your hand up.
Yes, since you invited the comments.
Always, yes.
I think that I view this two portions slightly differently. I think that the first portion that speaks of abundance and that there always will be abundance in the land of Israel, that speaks to the opportunity. That means that if you follow the laws of Torah and if you are faithful, then there will always be an opportunity and that you will never be destitute, etc. The second part, I think, speaks more to the fact that, however, if you see that the person is in need or is destitute, it is your obligation to help them and to offer them your help and not to put a yoke on them, rather than judge them that they committed a sin and therefore are, less worthy of material possessions. So that is my 5 cents.
I like it. I'll put 10 cents on there instead of 5. I like it, right? That there is this difference, and it's the idea of you can move, and also giving us the opportunity to actually follow the commandments, that we can't just be assumed that we're going to do it, or it's just written and yeah, I'm just going to skip that one. You have to have the opportunity to be able to do that. But instead of putting people in a place that they are destitute or affluent, every 7 years, it kind of resets and everyone gets to go at the same level. Which I think is really beautiful. So I think if we continue to think about what this text means for us today, so my next question on the sheet was, do you agree or disagree? So if anyone wants to throw in if they agree or disagree with Nachmanides, with the interpreters, or his interpretation of the text, that we got Dimitri's feeling on it, but if anyone else wants to jump in, otherwise I want to go to what it means for us today. Okay, gonna jump. So this is the Rabbi Jurgen commentary at the bottom here. That's why it's not labeled. And it says, we should focus on the fact that whether or not there are destitute people, we should be focusing on helping one another. Like, it doesn't matter what their label is. Here's it resets. We just need to be helping one another, no matter what the label on the person is. Things can't change unless we are more selfless ourselves. And this Shabbat, I encourage you to try to help one person in need. Open your hand or your heart. Be there for someone and let that pass on to others. Many of us think automatically that in this time of isolation, quarantine, and fear that we can't do anything for others, but it's not true. Seek in your heart, reach out to others. Think about the Elu Devarim prayer that we said at the beginning of our services this morning. And every time we read it during this isolation, I think about how it seems like, well, we can't go and rejoice with bride and groom, or we can't go visit the sick, or we can't do these things, accompany the dead for burial right now with some of the restrictions that we have on us. But that's just not true. It's how do we do it in a different way than we might have done normally? How can we still be there for people? And how can people be there for us? And so to think outside the box a little bit of what our normal is, or was, I don't know what normal is anymore. So normal was, and think, how can we do these things, and how can we help others in a time where we can't see them face to face? We have the technology, we can pick up the phone and call, we can do other things for people. And I just want to encourage all of us, myself included, to remember that each and every day, that we are not bound to only one way of helping people or interacting with people, and that we have to go out and interact with people in different ways. Shabbat Shalom. So Rabbi Nathan is going to read not those two verses, but one of them, because they're far apart and don't make sense to read together there. So she's going to read some of our Torah verses. You'll see them right there on the screen.
And the blessings are on page 250. So join with me. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hambarach, Baruch Adonai Hamavarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Joel, can you make it slightly bigger? No? It'd be so awesome if you could. That's too big. There we go. All right, you have to follow along. Okay, good. Thank you. Miketz sheva shanim ta'aseh shmita v'zeh devar hashmita shamot kol ba'al masheyado asher yasher bere'ehu lo yigos et re'ehu ve'et achiv ki karash mita ladonai et hanachri tigos va'asher yihiyeh lecha et achicha Tashmit yadecha hafes ki lo yihye becha evyon ki yivarechecha Adonai ba'aretz asher hi Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachala l'rishta rak im shama tishma b'kol Adonai Elohecha lishmor la'asot et kol hamitzvot hazot asher Anochi mitzavacha hayom. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The words of Torah freshly on our lips. We use those to give strength to those who are in need of healing of mind, body, and spirit. We think of those who are in need of physical healing, whether from COVID-19 or not. And we think of those who need emotional or spiritual healing as they struggle with all of the things that come with today's world. We see the people on the screen in front of us, and we add the names of those who are in our hearts. Mishaberach can be found on page 253.
Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha lahim avotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We continue with Aleinu on page 283, and if you are able, I invite you to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shehu samchalkin liyacher et shemo, v'gohor aleinu lamlich malchuto, v'anachnu chorim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. As we turn to page 289 for our memorial meditation, we note with sadness the death of Ruth Susser Shapira, mother of Janet and Joe Westheimer and Jay and Phyllis Shapira, grandmother of Michael Westheimer and Elaine Wolfe, Julie and Steve Bank, Jeffrey and Nicole Westheimer, Gwen and Greg Lorber, Beth Shapira, Jay Shapira Jr., and Leslie Shapira, great-grandmother of Max, Preston, Dylan, and Justin Westheimer, Reuben Asher, Simon and Delilah Bank, and Ari Lorber. A private service is planned. Page 289, the second memorial meditation. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Our thoughts turn now to those in our community who have died at this time in years past. As we mark their yard sites, we remember them. Edwin Aronson, Mark Abelow, Louis Arbetter, Helen Badish, Herman Badish, Louise Bankler, Gerald Barnholtz, Harold Burns, Ruth Brown, Toba Buxbaum, Beryl Cantil, Debbie Cope, Irene Wilson Cohen, Melvin David Cohen, Lillian Collins, Eva Cooper, Alex Crane, William DePere, Milton Dreben, Sarah Dubinsky, Julianne Edison, Elma B. Falkstein, Patricia Fisher, Harry Aaron Fish, Mario Friedberg, Claire Frontman, Rochelle Daisy Gez, Sari Gold, Miriam Goldbarg, Judy Guggenheim, Kava Gurovich, Herbert Halstead Sr., Jean Harris, Henry Henkin, Shlomo Alan, Lynn Judge, Mark Carpel, Barbara Katz, Beatrice Krasner, Alex Queller, Abraham Lerner, Anne V. Lest, Leah Helig Levine, Wanda Mann, Harry H. May, Ernest T. McCown, Joseph S. Middleman, Irma Oppenheim, Patty Kempner Oppenheimer, Norma Katz Oppenheimer, Orhan Ozmat, Paula Palmer, Peter M. Panfeld, Camilla K. Poland, Evelyn Poland, Mel Pomerantz, Aaron Rodkin, Molly Rodkin, Dr. Richard Rodkin, Roberto A. Rodriguez, Marcus Roos, Rosalie Pasternak Rosenblum, J. Marvin Saltzman, Pearl Sandfield, Ethel Scharlach, Schoenbaum, Gunther Strelke, Rosa Tobin, Bobby Unger, Sister Mary Walden OSU, Stanley Weiss, Morty Whitkin, Harold Gardner Wolf, and Raymond Wolf. To these names, we add those who died this past month, whose families are in a mourning period of Shloshim. We remember Tamara Ascension, Estelle Prissy Kaufman, Jean Croft, and Nellie Ambrose. To all of these names, we add those which are in our hearts each and every day as we stand together as one community for Kaddish Yatom on page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevarach le'elam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, Amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'imromav, hu yah shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen. You may be seated. Our closing song is Osei Shalom. It can be found on page 339.
I'm not sure if that's actually true. It's not there. I messed that up.
343.
Thanks. I think that's Gesher Tzar Ode from a few weeks ago.
Oh, say shalom Bimrama. Oh, yeah, say shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. We'd love for you to unmute yourselves, turn on your cameras so that we can say Shabbat Shalom together.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
shalom.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see you all.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Good weekend. And a good week.
For everything.
First.